left to die. Ash drifted through the windless air like dying snowflakes. The battlefield was silent now. Once a storm of roars, metal, and plasma fire. Now only scorched soil and twisted remains of ships marked the land. Bodies, both armored and bare, lay scattered across the broken terrain. The war had moved on, but one soul remained behind. Zyrene, warrior of the Varellan Dominion, dragged herself across the cratered rock, each movement grinding pain through her shattered ribs. Her once pristine armor was cracked and scorched, streaked with dry blood. Her scaled skin had split in places, and one eye refused to open. Every breath was a struggle. Every heartbeat, a question. She had been left, not defeated in battle, but discarded, betrayed. The final retreat order had come quickly. Her commander, his voice cold through the comms, had declared her non-recoverable. She wasn't even given a moment of silence. Just static, then nothing. The dropships had lifted off without her. She had given everything to the Dominion, blood, years, victories. And when she had questioned the command to fire on civilians during the siege of Iscaria, they branded her unstable. A threat. She was no longer useful. Just another broken tool. Zyrene let her body collapse against a half-buried chunk of armor plating. Her blood pooled beneath her, violet and thick. She turned her face toward the burnt sky, where gray clouds rolled over the horizon. The second sun was beginning to fall behind the jagged cliffs. This world would grow cold soon. Fitting. She exhaled a slow, rasping breath. Her claws curled in the dust. Let it end, she whispered, her native tongue clicking faintly in the still air. She closed her eyes. There was no glory waiting for her. No afterlife songs. No reunion with fallen sisters. Only the dark. She let herself drift. Let pain fade. Let thoughts unravel. But before she sank fully into the black, something touched her senses. A faint tremor in the ground. A sound. Heavy boots. A shadow fell across her face. Warmth followed. Confused, she opened one eye halfway, vision blurred and sluggish. A shape. A figure. Humanoid. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Covered in worn, dust-streaked armor. Not Varellan. Not Dominion. Human. She tried to recoil, but her limbs wouldn't obey. Her heartbeat fluttered, instinct screaming danger. The human dropped to one knee beside her. She saw his face now, a man. Unshaven, weary eyes, helmet off. His expression wasn't one of triumph or cruelty. It was concern. He said something, a soft murmur, then gently pressed 2 fingers to her neck, checking for a pulse. Zyrene summoned a last burst of energy and hissed. "Why, help me," she croaked. He paused, clearly surprised she could speak. Then came his reply, rough but kind, in a strangely accented voice. "You're hurt. I don't leave people behind." That made no sense. They were enemies. The humans had fought fiercely, but she'd always believed them to be barbaric, instinct-driven creatures, dangerous and selfish. Yet this one's hands moved with care. His fingers worked quickly, tearing cloth from his own gear to wrap her side. He muttered to himself, checking her wounds, not once showing fear or disgust. As her eyes fluttered closed again, she wondered if this was a trick, or maybe a final delusion, the brain's cruel gift before death. But no, she felt arms beneath her, lifting her gently, slowly, as if she mattered, as if she were more than just a dying enemy on a forgotten battlefield. The last thing she heard before slipping into unconsciousness was a human voice murmuring, almost tenderly, "Hang in there, alien. You're not dying today." A human in the dust. Zyrene awoke to warmth. Not the biting heat of scorched metal or sun-blasted soil. This was softer. Flickering. A fire? She opened her eyes slowly. Her body screamed in protest, every muscle tense and sore, but she was alive. A low-roofed cave surrounded her, dimly lit by the flicker of a small fire built in a ring of stones. Shadows danced across the rocky walls. Her breathing was shallow, and she felt the tight pull of cloth across her midsection. Bandages, not Dominion issue. She was covered with a patchwork of unfamiliar fabrics. Even her wounds were cleaned. Someone had taken care of her. Then she heard it. the scraping sound of metal on stone. She turned her head slightly and saw him. The human. He sat a few meters away, back against the cave wall, cradling a half-disassembled rifle in his lap. His armor, battered, mismatched pieces of composite and ceramic plating, was set beside him. He looked up, noticed her watching, and paused. "You're awake," he said quietly. His voice was gravelly but calm. Not mocking, not cruel. Zyrene blinked. "Why, still alive?" He set the rifle aside and inched closer, keeping his hands visible. "Didn't seem right to leave you there. You were dying. I couldn't walk past that." His words came slowly, clearly. Her implant struggled to parse the human accent. Some phrases fuzzed in translation, but the meaning was there. "I am Varelen. Enemy," she rasped, voice cracked and dry. The human reached for a small canister and unscrewed the lid, pouring a bit of water into a collapsible cup. He held it out to her carefully. "Doesn't matter right now," he said. "You're hurt. I help." Zyrene stared at him. Suspicion warred with thirst. After a moment, she accepted the cup with a trembling, clawed hand and sipped. It tasted faintly metallic, but was clean. He gave a small nod. "Name's Cole. Sergeant. Earthborn, 7th Expeditionary." She looked at him through slitted eyes. "Zyrene. 3rd Varelen Lance." "Zyrene," he repeated slowly, as if tasting the shape of it. "Nice to meet you. Under better circumstances would have been nice." She said nothing. He leaned back, stretching his legs. One was braced with a makeshift splint. She noticed the limp when he shifted. He was wounded too, yet he'd still carried her from the battlefield. She studied him with quiet disbelief. The stories her people told about humans were harsh, unpredictable animals fueled by rage and instinct. But this one was gentle, measured, and clearly tired. "You lost?" she asked. "Yeah," he admitted, staring into the fire. "Extraction ship missed me. Beacons busted. Radio's shot. It's just us for now." Zyrene let that sink in. "Stranded. Both of them. Enemy and enemy." She clenched her jaw. "You should have left me." "I don't leave people behind," he said again. Then, softer, "Even if the war says I should." His voice held no pride, just truth. Zyrene didn't understand it. Compassion, especially for an enemy, was not a Varelen trait. In her culture, weakness was discarded. Efficiency ruled. Mercy was a liability. She glanced down at her side. Her wounds had been treated as best as possible. The pain was dulled, and the bleeding stopped. It was crude work, but it had saved her. "How long?" she asked. 2 days since I found you. Been trying to stabilize your fever, keep you hydrated." He smiled faintly. "You're tougher than you look." Zyrene's eyes narrowed. "You risked your life for me?" He nodded. "Yeah, guess I'm dumb like that." They sat in silence for a while. Only the fire spoke, popping and crackling. Zyrene finally looked at him fully. "I don't understand you." Cole chuckled, rubbing a hand through his short beard. "Most people don't. But I'm not here to explain humanity. I'm just here to make sure you don't die." She lay back, watching the shadows. Her instincts still screamed not to trust him. But her body, and something deeper, knew she owed him her life. She closed her eyes again, not in surrender this time, but in uneasy rest. And Cole? He stayed awake, rifle across his lap, guarding the cave, and her, as the alien night deepened. Firelight and fractures. By the 4th day, Zyrene could walk again, barely. Her movements were stiff, cautious, and painful. But each step brought a flicker of strength back to her limbs. The cave that had once felt like a tomb now felt like something different. A shelter, fragile but real. Outside, the wind howled across the ruined valley, but inside, the fire crackled and a strange rhythm had formed between her and the human. Cole. She still didn't know what to make of him. He spoke to her in fragments, taught her small things, how to dry meat over the fire, how to tune her damaged wrist calm just enough to pick up radio noise, how to laugh, not at anything in particular, just to release the pressure of silence. In return, Zyrene shared what she knew, which moss held moisture, which roots could dull pain, how to listen for tremors that signaled ground beasts moving underground. They had not become friends. Not yet, but the hatred, the instinctual recoil she had once felt, was gone. That evening, they sat side by side beneath the lip of the cave entrance, watching the horizon burn orange with the setting twin suns. You know, Cole muttered, adjusting the splint on his leg. I used to think you guys were all fangs and fury. No mercy, no fear. Zyrene gave him a sidelong glance. We are taught to conquer fear. Weakness is punished. He nodded slowly. That's a rough way to live. She looked out at the horizon. It's what made us strong. But also alone, he added quietly. Zyrene didn't respond. She remembered the faces of her squad mates, the way they had avoided her gaze when the dropships left. None of them had fought for her. No one had disobeyed orders to save her. Cole had. He had no reason, no reward, just a choice. You were wounded, she said after a while. You could have saved yourself more easily without me. Cole exhaled, shaking his head. Maybe, but I've lost enough people. Not letting that happen again, if I can help it. She stared at him. You speak of loss like it defines you. It does. He flexed his fingers, as if feeling ghosts. Brother died in the second wave. My whole unit got torn apart during the retreat. I've been running on instinct ever since. Zyrene's voice was quiet. I questioned orders once. We were told to fire on unarmed civilians. I refused. That's why I was left behind. Cole turned to her, brows furrowed. You risked death to protect innocents. I thought. Maybe he was right. Her tone was bitter. My commander thought otherwise. A long silence stretched between them. The suns had dipped halfway below the mountains now, casting golden rays across the charred valley. Zyrene's tail twitched slightly in the dust. You're not what I expected, Cole finally said. Neither are you. A rustling sound snapped their attention back to the cave. Low, guttural snarls echoed off the rocks. Zyrene reacted first, grabbing the staff she had sharpened from a broken support strut. Cole hobbled to his feet, rifle in hand. From the shadows emerged two stalkers, native beasts with 6 legs, armored hides, and glowing eyes that locked onto them with hungry precision. The creatures lunged. Zyrene sprang forward, slashing across the nearest one's flank. It yelped and turned, jaws snapping. Cole fired a short burst, catching the other in the shoulder, but it didn't fall. Pain flared in Zyrene's healing side, but she moved on instinct. She ducked, rolled, jabbed the sharpened staff into the creature's exposed throat. It screeched, then collapsed in a spasm of limbs. Cole fired again, this time striking the beast's side. The second fell. The silence returned as quickly as it had been broken. Both stood panting, blood dripping from wounds new and old. You okay? He asked, lowering his rifle. Zyrene nodded, clutching her side. Yes. You, still ugly, still standing. She gave a short, rasping sound. A laugh, or close enough. They dragged the bodies away from the cave and returned to the firelight, sitting side by side once more. You fight well, she said. So do you. Even half dead. Zyrene leaned back against the cave wall. For the first time since the war began, she felt something unfamiliar, safety. Maybe it wasn't the cave. Maybe it was him, beyond survival. 3 days later, the beacon came to life. It was a rough job. Wires twisted together, circuits cannibalized from Cole's shattered comms unit and pieces of Zyrene's helmet display. But it worked. The signal pulsed into the void, sending a repeating SOS across local frequencies. Now all they could do was wait. Zyrene sat on a rock just outside the cave, sharpening her blade with the quiet rhythm of habit. The sky above was clear for once, a deep violet canvas brushed with stars. Behind her, Cole limped around the fire, reheating their meager rations. His limp had worsened. He tried not to show it, but Zyrene had noticed. You should rest that leg, she said without turning. You should stop bossing me around, he replied, grinning faintly. She allowed herself a faint smirk. One of us is more functional. He sat down beside her with a grunt. One of us is also still bleeding purple. They fell into silence again. Comfortable now. Familiar. Zyrene stared at the sky. Do you think they'll come? Either side. Maybe, Cole said. Doesn't matter who, as long as we get out alive. She nodded, but said nothing. The truth lingered between them. Even if someone came, there was no guarantee they'd be safe. Her people had left her to die. His had already pulled out and may not even know he was alive. If either faction responded, would they be seen as survivors? Or traitors? I don't want to go back, Zyrene said quietly. Cole glanced at her. To the Dominion? To who I was. He looked away, poking the fire with a stick. Yeah, I get that. Another silence passed, but heavier this time. The kind that marked a shift. You saved me, Zyrene said. No reason. No gain. Just choice. I didn't think about it, Cole admitted. Saw someone left behind. I know how that feels. She turned to face him. You gave me something I'd never been shown by my own kind. What's that? She placed a hand gently on his chest, fingers splayed across the cracked armor plate. Worth. Cole's breath caught. His hand covered hers. Not possessive, just steady. You've always had that, he murmured. Above them, a blinking light suddenly pierced the sky, a ship descending fast, engines roaring in the upper atmosphere. It wasn't Dominion. It wasn't Earth military. A neutral vessel. Emergency markings visible even from a distance. Zyrene stood slowly. They answered. Cole stood too, favoring his bad leg. Let's hope they're friendlier than we were. As the ship lowered, its lights swept over the valley like a sunrise. Dust curled around its landing gear. A boarding ramp hissed open. Two figures emerged, clad in silver hazard suits with universal emblems on their shoulders. Rescue operatives. Medics. Not soldiers. Zyrene felt something uncoil in her chest. Not fear. Not caution. Relief. One of the medics waved them forward, scanning them with a handheld device. We receive your distress signal. Are you injured? Cole nodded. Both of us. Survivors of the Varellan human engagement. No aggression here. We're just done fighting. The medics exchanged glances. Understood. You're safe now. They guided the pair toward the ramp. Zyrene hesitated halfway up. She turned back one last time, looking at the scorched valley, the cave that had become their sanctuary. Where death had once waited, life had been reborn. And now, a future, undefined, uncertain, but real, waited ahead. Cole stood beside her. You okay? She looked at him. Then, gently, she leaned against his shoulder. I closed my eyes to die, she whispered, but opened them to this. He smiled and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Guess we both got lucky. Together, they stepped aboard the rescue ship, leaving behind a battlefield and carrying with them something no war could ever break. Hope.